used to work in a beach resort in the Philippines back in 1989. Due to the nature of my job, I was given a room in the hotel where I actually lived. My assigned room was on the second floor. One night, I was awakened by strange noises in the room. First, I heard like a table tennis ball bouncing all over my room, then followed by a noise above my room, which sounded like someone was rearranging the furniture, like dragging the bed. After the dragging bed sound, next would be what seemed like a person running around that room, above me and barefooted. I checked the time. It was about 3 a.m. Then I called the front desk to inquire about a possible guest at the third floor, directly above my room. The front desk agent told me that there was nobody checked in that room, nor were the guests on the third floor at that time. I ignored this at first. However, every night, at exactly 3 a.m., I hear the same strange sounds, all in succession. This experience has affected me tremendously, to the point that I could no longer keep my schedule of a 9-to-5 work shift. Instead, I came to work at 11 a.m. or even 1 p.m. because of sleepless, disturbing nights. Then, the worst of the worst happened. One night, I went to my room late, feeling exhausted from work. I left my table lamp on, as I always did, especially after hearing these strange sounds, and went to sleep. As always, at 3 a.m. came the usual sounds, but at that time, as I desperately wanted to sleep, I sort of showed feelings of annoyance by shouting and tried to put on my headphones, then tried to go back to sleep. A few seconds after this behavior, I heard an extremely loud banging on the table lamp, like a steel bar that was stroked on the table. I immediately sat up on my bed, with my blanket all over my body, feeling cold, and again, a few seconds as I was sitting on my bed, I heard laughter of several women that came like an echo behind my head. Also at this time, I noticed the lamplight turned dim. My hair felt like it was rising. The woman's laughter that I've heard resembles that of a witch. I froze for a few seconds and tried my best to reach out for the phone just beside my bed to call a coworker at the other room. When my coworker finally came, I related the whole story. He then suggested that I move to the room of another coworker for that night. When I agreed, he took the phone and tried to make a call to the coworker whom I can move in for the night. Then came another surprise. While he was holding the phone, he just started to freeze like a mannequin, and tears were rolling down his face. I shook him, trying to find out what happened. He seemed shocked. I slapped him, and he came to consciousness. He told me that the phone rang for several times. Then it suddenly stopped ringing, without anyone answering the call. Instead, he heard women's voices laughing, just exactly what I heard myself moments earlier. We both rushed out of the room and went to our coworker that we were trying to call earlier. Our coworker opened the door and told us that she never heard the phone ring at all. The natives of that town informed me that the area that the beach resort was built on used to be a cemetery and a hospital during the Japanese period. Until the day I submitted my registration, up to the time I vacated my room, I still heard those sounds. At present, I heard that beach resort closed down. This is not really a ghost story per se. I've never seen anything, but it is kind of spooky anyway. I have a 7-year-old daughter. Her name is Katie. When she was 4, my grandfather passed away very suddenly from a heart attack while trimming the bushes. We were all very close, and the next day, after all my aunts and uncles and my grandma had gone to the funeral home to make their arrangements, we were all sitting on the porch talking about my grandfather and stories of his life, when out of the blue, Katie said, "Shh, do you hear that?" Everyone stopped talking, and she said that she heard Grandpa's breath. No one really thought anything more about it. Well, for weeks after his funeral, she would wake up every morning, telling me that her crippin' grandpa, her nickname for him, would talk to her in her dreams and tell her to be a good girl and to watch over my grandma and to always be happy. She is now 7, and going to school, and every once in a great while, she will start to cry and tell me that she misses her crib and grandpa. She even wishes that he would talk to her again, and she also asks me if she has been a bad girl, and if she has, it's the reason why he doesn't talk to her anymore. I feel that when children are little, they are free and open, and that spirits use this to speak to them. When the children get older, they aren't as open and don't believe anymore. Is this true? Thanks for taking the time to read this. In October of 1999, I took my 2 young children to Disneyland. We stayed in a nice inn across the street from the main gate. After a long day, running like loons through the park, we settled in for the night. In our room was 2 queen-size beds. My older sister and my 7-year-old daughter shared one bed, and myself and 9-year-old son shared the other. Soon we were all sound asleep. Sometime in the wee hours of the morning, I was jolted awake by the sound of someone getting sick. Someone was throwing up right next to me. Not to get too graphic, but it was loud and nasty. Instantly, I jumped out of bed, along with my sister, who was awakened. I flipped on the light, fully expecting to see one of my kids sitting up with a mess on the floor. Both children were sleeping like the dead. My sister and I spun around in circles, looking for the vomit we both clearly heard hit the floor. Nothing. We were confused. We knew what we heard. It was so clear and loud. I made the comment that we had a sick ghost. My sister said it was obviously someone in the next room. It made sense to me, but I couldn't get over how close it sounded, not muffled. The next day, as we left the room, very early, I noticed that the other room next to ours was empty. I asked the clerk at the desk if someone had rented the room last night, and she said no. I found your page, but was interested in telling my story. It'll be good for me to tell it, for I have not as of yet. When I was 20 years old, I was living in Burning, Washington, just south of Seattle, in a new apartment complex. I was very excited to be living in that city. I had grown up in Alaska and had ventured out on my own to start my adult life. The complex was beautiful, had a big swimming pool and a tanning salon right on the grounds of the complex. I shared the apartment with a new friend who was out of town in Western Washington visiting her parents. I will explain the room layout so you can better understand what happened to me in our apartment. There was a dining room formed out of 2 walls, and the third was a split bar area with an open counter connecting to the kitchen. You could sit at the bar and talk to someone cooking or doing dishes. Between the bar and the kitchen was a mounted phone with a short cord, lending its location to people to sit at the bar and use the phone. Across the bar on the other side of the kitchen was a large window looking over the main street just outside the complex. On the night I was attacked, I was sitting at the bar, talking on the phone to a friend back home in Alaska. We were laughing and having a great visit. I felt fine. I was just talking on the phone. It was nighttime, and as I chatted, I began glancing out of the dark window. It only reflected my image, as it was dark outside, and the dining room light behind me and the kitchen light in front of me was on, so it was light outside. I would glance now, and then at my reflection. Everything was fine. The last thing I remember was glancing at the potted plants on the dining room table right behind me, using the reflection in the window. I was in mid-conversation when something, I don't know to this day, took hold of my hips and yanked me off the bar stool and across the room. I hit the far side of the wall with the center of my back and slid down to the rest of the floor with my butt on the floor and my full back against the wall. The phone was ripped out of my hand as I was pulled and flung back across the kitchen and creaked the kitchen window, came back and hit the bar. I began to scream for help, convinced that I was being attacked and or raped or whatever by someone, but no one was there. I just remember screaming, not knowing what happened. My friend was on the phone and he was frantic, trying to recall me. But as the phone was in parts all over, I was all alone. I stood up and started to rationalize what just happened as I was alone. I thought I must have fell off the chair, but I could have not spanned the 9 feet from the bar to the far dining room wall from a fall. As I thought to calm myself, I saw the indent in the apartment wall where I hit. It was 5 feet up from the floor. I did the only thing I truly knew to do. I got on my knees and recited the Lord's Prayer. As I am doing at this very moment, I told all evil to flee in the name of Christ. This I did all night. I moved out to a new apartment in Federal Way and had no problems. I'm 33 years old now. I'm a parent and I own my own business. I'm not some nut. I'm just a person who was hurt by something I don't understand. That's why I want to thank you for having this webpage. Sure, some people out there may be fooling around, but for those of us who are not, thank you for helping me see I'm not alone. About 2 years later, I returned to Alaska and planted roots. One day, I got a letter forwarded from my apartment in Burton. Good old mail system found me at last, and for the first time, I realized the apartment address was XXX Laponia, Des Moines, and Memorial Drive. I later found out on the web that there were 3 graveyards circling the complex. This is true. Look it up if you wish. Anyone out there living in Laponia complex in Vernon, Washington, take a hint. Move. I've had the hair stand up on me in places and circumstances, and I take this feeling as a warning and move away fast. My name is Lisa, and I have some odd things that have happened to me since birth. I do not have just one random story. I'm plagued with spirits. I can't go into cemeteries. I can't be left in certain rooms alone. I do not know what to really do. Let me tell you about a few more recent incidences that occurred in my everyday life. Back in the early 90s, my family and I moved into a townhouse complex in Hayward, California. The first week we moved in, my mother had the townhouse blessed. Just so you know, my mother's family had practiced the art of witchcraft for centuries. My grandmother was the witch town doctor, and her mother before her was the same. I know you might think it's crazy, but it's really not. The craft my mother's side has practiced for years is not in any book. It's just passed between daughters. At any rate, I thought it was safe at this new place, but things started happening again. First off, when we moved in, I hated the garage. I would run in and out of it whenever I had to get anything. Mind you, it was small. The only light was a cord you pulled from the center of the room, and my family used it for storage, which made it smaller. There were 3 doors. One led to the backyard, one was the large door that opened to the street, and the third was a door leading to the kitchen. This kitchen door never stayed open. It had hinges on it that would make it swing closed by itself. My process was to throw the door open, run in, and run out before it closed. I was 12 at the time, so I have my wits about me enough to know that something was not right. I never see the ghosts, but I hear them all the time. Or, if I don't hear them, a mental image so clear hits my brain that I know I did not make it up. Slowly, things became worse. I would be home alone from school and hear noises upstairs. The noise would be talking and walking around in the back bedroom. Then, it would come down the stairs and seem to stop at the bottom. My cat, who seems to be able to see them, would hiss at air and try to claw at something, passing, then race upstairs. I would simply ignore it, having had things like this happen all my life. Then one day, something terrifying happened. Something I wonder if anyone out there has had this happen. I was about 15 by this time, and I was given the back bedroom as my own. Just to explain, the room had a large window on one wall, the door was to the left, and the closet took up the entire length of the other wall. I had my bed set so my feet faced the closet. I slept in a twin bed at the time, and laid on the side, back, facing the wall. As I was asleep one night, I thought I woke up, but I realized after a moment I could not move. My blankets felt real, and a sense of panic overwhelmed me. I tried to call for my parents across the hall, but could not make a solitary noise. Every move I made was a struggle. It seemed to take hours to move my hand. Something in the back of my mind told me to look behind me. Seeing as I could not move, managed to reach behind me with a hand. As I did, a hand touched mine. It was not threatening. It felt like a child's, really soft and not really cold, but this alone forced my body to move. I literally fell out of bed and looked around, turning the light on. Needless to say, this event sparked my inability to sleep without something running like the TV or radio. This happened to me 6 more times, but in each of the new times, I never turned around or felt behind me. I just used everything I had to get up and go downstairs to watch TV until it was 8 a.m. We have moved from there since then, and many other things still happen to me. This was the most terrifying, and if anyone has answers, I would like to know. I still have it happen, but I've learned to shake myself out of it before it comes on fully. Hi. First of all, you have to excuse my English. It's my second language. Unfortunately, nothing very weird did happen to me. Yet, I'm going to tell you what happened to one of my cousins. Shortly after my cousin's father passed away from cancer, some weird things started to happen. One night, my cousin had a dream. She dreamt, and she swears to this day it was her father's voice, that he told her that he was not buried. She woke up and thought it was strange because there was a funeral. Anyway, it turned out that their stepmother, they don't like her, refused to bury him because she doesn't want him to be buried next to his first wife, who died when they were very young. His ashes were in their study for a long time. Anyway, that's how I understood it. Not a long time after that, she woke up feeling very scared. She saw a dark figure in the corner of her room. He had a dark coat on, with a hat. She buried her face in the duvet and started to pray. Eventually, she fell asleep. Maybe it's all got to do with emotional stress, but it is interesting. Thanks for listening. I am from Malaysia, a country in the region of Southeast Asia. I have some stories to tell and hope you will find them interesting. In the heart of Kuala Lumpur, capital city of Malaysia, there used to be a hospital called the Sentosa Hospital. Being in the middle of a bustling city center, it was one of the most accessible hospitals for city folks. Thus, my grandmother, who stayed nearby, was admitted there several times. There was one time, 14 years ago, my grandmother was admitted for an old age illness. During this time, all of us family members would take turns to visit her whenever we could. Most regular was her daughter, my aunt, who was in her 40s, who used to go almost every night after work. Now, to access the upper patients' wards, all visitors would either use the stairs or the general elevators. I always get the creeps when I step into one of those elevators. Not just that they were dark and creepy. You get that feeling when you're stepping into a morgue, because the way the elevator housing is designed, it's like shaped to carry a dead person or something. One night, this aunt of mine, who was coming out of the ward after a visit, as usual, took a ride in one of these elevators. There were a few people inside as well. Suddenly, she felt a big jolt inside her body, as if something just hopped into her. From then on, she would remember nothing, and the rest of the story would be recalled by other family members who stayed with her. It seems that immediately after the ride in the elevator, she became a totally new person, new in a very nasty way. For the next 2 weeks or so, my aunt was speaking in new voices, babbling foreign languages, and acting like a very naughty kid. She would jump on the dining room table and eat greedily right there, with her bare hands, like she has never eaten before. She would run around uncontrollably, and at the same time, speak if there were a few different people inside her. She was totally lost. Outright, we knew that she was possessed by evil spirits. In Malaysia, We have heard about these things, and they are not uncommon. Luckily for us all, during that, a traveling troupe of mediums to some Chinese deities were coming down to a visit to celebrate a festival of the gods. During these annual festivals, worshippers are invited to share their problems with the medium, to the deity, and are offered divine help. On the night of the festival, my uncle and another aunt had to practically drag her there to get rid of the spirits. It was like they knew what was coming. In the cleansing process, after some prayers and chants, my aunt had to be held down while she was being beaten with a whip made of snakeskin. It was painful to see her that way, but my uncle said that it took a while and many lashes before the spirits were forced to leave her body one by one. After that, she collapsed. I remember when I had to visit her a few days later, she was still recovering from the trauma, pale and so weak, so unlike her normal bubbly self. We were told by the medium that her body was possessed by 5 spirits of Indian children while on the elevator. We Chinese believe that in certain times of our lives, our souls go through the low times. It is during these times that we are very vulnerable to the negative and evil forces around us. My unlucky aunt was in that phase. Well, the latest update to the hospital, it has now been turned into a 3-star hotel. Believe it or not, I've been told that it took psychics and mediums of various religions to cleanse the building before it was habitable. Talking about haunted places, you would be interested to know that in Malaysia, we have a resort city in the hills called Genting Highlands in the state of Pahang. It is very popular amongst locals and tourists, as it is located several thousand feet above the hills in a lush green tropical forest, thus providing a cool retreat from the lowlands' heat and humidity. And very famous for being, you can say, the most haunted place in Malaysia. Despite the busloads of tourists and entertainment and recreational activities they have, there never seems to be a shortage of ghosts. Most famous are the 20-over-story Ria apartments and the Kagdanan apartments. These apartments are available for rent to the public. Although priced very affordably, we locals never want to stay there, even for a night, as almost all who have been there complain of hauntings in their apartment unit. I can say that 80% who stay there come back with a story to tell. All sorts of the regular hauntings are in large doses. It seems that there is a head ghost in the hills who resides there, and is so powerful he refuses to leave, and this leader also controls all the other smaller ghosts there. You see, this resort houses the only casino in Malaysia, and many people go there just to gamble their fortunes. Unfortunately, many have lost their life savings to the casino, and many too have taken their own lives by jumping to their deaths. Their lost spirits are said to be roaming there. It is a rule that when you are there, never turn around and answer someone's call, especially at night and the voice is calling your name, because if you do, and if your soul is in the low phase, you just might get caught. Slap in the face by the unknown is what usually happens, and that could land a person's soul in great danger. Even during peak season, you can see that as all the hotels are fully booked, these 2 apartments remain relatively empty. I wouldn't stay there, even if it's free. Good news for all of you ghost hunters out there. If you want to study a haunting, look no further. Satisfaction and results guaranteed. Pun intended. Just ask the reservation office for the scariest apartments available, and they will be so glad to help. For those faint at heart, the hotels are known to be quite safe and free from hauntings. Hey everybody, so that Malaysian story was epic. I'm not gonna lie guys, Asian stories are probably my favorites, especially for ghost stories, and I'm sure many of you agree. They're just so intense, and there's so much that you can appreciate just to like them. I messed up, guys. I'm gonna leave that edit in because, well, that's not really an edit, but you know what I mean. Anyway, we got the Malaysian story, we have other stories in the story, and we got our lives to depend on ourselves for the rest of eternity. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I guess you guys will have to figure it out for yourselves, you know what I'm saying? I don't know why I just said if you know what I'm saying, because I don't even know what I'm saying. But you guys, I'm probably rapping right now, so I guess it's a wrap. Yeah. Anyway, guys, like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's a great weekend coming up, I guess, for you. I'm assuming. I don't even know what's going on with my weekend, but I'm happy I got a video out, guys. Especially a couple days after my other release. So I'm sure when you guys get the notification, which I hope you get it, you guys will be like, oh, my panties are filled with happiness and stuff like that. I know you guys don't talk like that, and if you do, well, that's awesome too, because I don't discriminate against anybody. Anyway, guys, good night, good morning. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great weekend, and welcome to my life.